posting, you're speaking, you're doing everything they told you would grow your business. So why is it not converting? Because visibility is only half the equation. Getting attention is easy. Turning that attention into clients takes strategy. VoiceLab was built to solve that. This is where front-end visibility meets back-end conversion. You learn how to get on stages, create your own platforms, and use podcasts, summits, and workshops to grow your audience and generate real leads. Then you learn what most people never build. A system that captures those leads, follows up, nurtures relationships, and turns interest into revenue. Email and newsletter strategy that actually gets responses. Workflows, not just more noise. Real connection that leads to real business. Inside VoiceLab, you are not guessing. You're learning the how. You're implementing in real time. You're building a business that works even when you are not constantly chasing attention. Because here's the truth. If you don't have visibility, no one knows you exist. If you don't have systems, nothing converts. VoiceLab gives you both, so you can stop performing for attention and start building momentum that pays you back. If you are ready to grow your authority, expand your reach, and finally turn visibility into income, join Colleen Stubbs and Nicole Borghi in the VoiceLab. Scan the QR code, join the VoiceLab group on the school platform, and build the business that actually works.
Good morning. Good morning. Here we go. And we're back for another episode of the Pain Point Podcast. Sorry, guys. Tech is doing its thing. It's going everywhere, and the mouse is in control. How are you? We're back. We're back with some amazing guests today. But what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about that keeping money is a skill, right? Oh, that thing as an entrepreneur. Are you leaking? What are you doing? Are you creating real financial clarity and drowning in spreadsheets? Or, what are the hidden truths on this? How do we keep it? How do we invest it? What are we doing moving on with a great guest today? I want to do a little housekeeping, and we're going to talk about a few things today on what we're doing and what is going on in the world. As far as the Voice Lab, we've got a great summit coming up, and it's called the Authority Code. It is how leaders influence, right? Not just how do you be an influencer? It's really how do you influence your audience? And what we're doing right now, a podcast, is a way to influence your audience. How are you growing? How are you showing? How are you engaging? Not just with your collaborators, but with your clients now and those lurkers that are going to follow you everywhere. And one day you want them to turn into clients, but you've got to show the influence. You've got to get that footprint out there. And join us for the first day is totally live. We're going to broadcast the speaker panel live. It's going to be engaging conversations. We're going to have a Red Robin kind of Q&A, little fireside chat there. Get to know the speakers, what they're talking about, what they bring to the table, as well as going ahead and networking with these great leaders. We want you to get to know them, get to reach out to them, ask questions, chance for you to turn on your camera and feel like you matter. We want you to take part in this. That's what Summit is really all about. We talk about engaging. Also, the Voice Lab membership. We're building and moving. We've got a lot of master classes coming up. We've got speaker coach Frank King that's going to be in the house, and he's doing something in June. We've also got this great speaker app for those speakers who want to get paid. Stay tuned. I'm going to see this. I'm going to keep seeding this. I'm super excited about that. And I will share it today. You want to reach out into that chat, like, subscribe, and comment. Why? Because it keeps it moving. We get to bring some cool stuff to you. Just like if you need a guest and you have an event, you get a chance to share it. And also, if you're a speaker, you get a chance to fill out that form and share your talk title. So those people who are looking for great speakers just like you, maybe you're the best kept secret right now, they're going to have a stage for you as well as myself. So let's get into it. I am going to bring Andrew, if you want to come in and go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience about what you do, who you are, because we've had some great conversations. I'm looking forward to this today.
Hey Nicole, thanks for inviting me on. I really appreciate being here.
Yeah, glad to have you. So you want to tell people a little bit about what you do and why you do it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a financial services practice and I help people create options and flexibility in their financial world through really simple and compassionate planning. And I do that because probably like many of you out there listening, uh, grew up in a situation where I learned a lot more in my 20s and 30s that I maybe wish I would have learned in my, teen years and college. And next thing you know, you get out in the real world and you wonder what the heck is going on.
Yeah, there's life out there, right? There's a
Yeah.
world out there that we're not always aware of, and sometimes it's okay, right? It serves a purpose so we can really focus in our own life and do what we need to do. And then all of a sudden, something sparkles, and it's almost like a magic wand is waved, and now we're an adult, and it's like looking around and going, "Hey, what is going on here? What
Yeah,
are
for
we
sure.
doing?" Right? Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm just so glad to have you here as a person who really enjoys sharing with people that elevation of leadership and influence with their audience and caring in the community and what you do and how you do it. It's really because you do that. You help families create options, flexibility with their financial lives. And with all this talk about finances and the 1% and all that that's out there on the news, and everybody's got an opinion
Yeah.
and a thought. But if you build the your finances, you can finance your business, right? You can finance your life, and then you can say, "Hey, this is what I want to do in my business, and I want to grow, but I also want to focus on the legacy for my life, the legacy
Hmm.
that I'm going to leave my family." And maybe if I want to retire, go on a vacation, do those really cool things because you're out there working real hard, right? You're doing the thing. I mean, you even play hard. You're a hockey coach and you got a background with that, but
Yeah.
you really want to serve the community. And what I love, this is where I know we really mesh, is that my thing is for cause marketing. If you have a stage, if you do a workshop, if you make some money in your business, whatever the do is, whatever the thing is that you do so well, you can go ahead and you can support your community. You
Hmm.
want to make change, it takes money to do that. How do you do that? And it's okay to have money. It's okay to be successful because when you are, then you can make that change. You don't have to ask for a handout. And my gosh, fundraising, not so fun for the nonprofit. I was tasked to do that, to fundraise. And I was like, hey, why don't we just have an event and raise some money because people can do things, people can see,
Right.
people have connection. It's no fun. So would you tell people really about how you got into this, and why it's so important for you, especially within the community?
Yeah, the community, I think I didn't really imagine it that way, but it turned out to be the most important and the most fun part about what I do now. And really that's because I fell into the financial world itself on accident. I think like a lot of entrepreneurs out there, an opportunity presents itself and you end up taking it. Sometimes that seems to be, just as much as anything as far as starting a business. It just had happened that year. Every January I take a moment to look back on the year prior and look ahead to the year to come. And that year I had written down, I would like to learn more about finance, and really for my own personal benefit, right? At the time I was in the pharmaceutical and biotech industry, and fast forward to August that year, and this opportunity presented itself to me, and someone said, "Hey, I think you should do this. Would you want to start a business in this area?" And I was like, "Are you sure you're looking at the same resume I'm looking at?" And talked it through very carefully with them and with my wife, and ended up being the best decision I've made. I've definitely got the, most rewarding, most difficult and longest term job, I hope I do this for the next, 20, 30 years. It's just a blast to be able to help people in what we do today.
It is. It just really is. It's so good to see the change and be part of it. People are, you hear it, you watch the news, you watch TV, people complain. They're sure they complain. We can all complain, right? But what are you doing about the solution? It's okay to you share with people, hey, I've got something to get off my chest. I need to speak for a second. I have something going on in my life, or I've seen this thing. It's really bothering in me in the community. It's horrible, bad. Going to PTA meetings or any involvement, and people
Hmm.
complain, but nobody's offering a solution.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where basically this show evolved from, was to say, hey, we need to get into the community. We need to be part of the community. We need to solve for the solution and how to get out there. What do we do? How do we do it? And how do we make this fundamental change? But money is a sticky issue with a lot of people. And I
Yeah.
know, with my mom, she wrote a check on Tuesday, like Wimpy, hey, if you give me a hamburger today,
Hmm.
I'll pay you Friday when I get paid. She post dated the check for Friday, right? When we would go shopping. So you
Yeah.
learn that in your head. It's like, oh, first of all, we can't write a check anymore. It means nothing. Money comes out immediately. So what do we do? And are we having those healthier conversations of how do we grow? And it's a healthy thing because you need to take care of yourself. You need to take care of your neighbors, and we can't always barter. There's
Hmm.
Bitcoins, there's all these apps, it's digital currency. It's a whole different mindset for people and everybody to get in there. But let's
Yeah.
really get into some of that, kind of uncomfortable truth for some people is, why are so many entrepreneurs making money? Because you're in there talking, you're in there networking with people, and you're like, hey, they say they're making decent money. We know not everybody's making that. They're doing the fake it till you make it. But
Yeah.
kind of they're still stressed all the time because we're online and we're not getting that corporate paycheck anymore. And with
Hmm.
2026 being the year that people are all getting pink slipped and now they have to become entrepreneurs, find something creatively. What do you tell them that, hey, you're making money? What can you do to have a healthier, happier life?
Yeah, well, I would start off with, for one thing, there's no shame in the fake it till you make it. There's no shame in the other side of it where you have a lot of money, your business is doing well, and now now what? So I like to tell people that because, we're going to talk about a lot here, and that's where, I invite anyone that is kind of curious that's like,
All the
wants to
time.
learn more. I'll invite you to talk with me afterwards and continue that conversation. But for now, I think just having that acceptance of yourself of saying, hey, this is where I'm at today. And like you said, Nicole, like you, if you kind of think it through, and if you find yourself today in this situation where you've gotten pink slipped or your business has taken a turn that you've not expected and you've not planned for that, then you might be creating more stress on yourself than you otherwise would. And wouldn't it be nice to have that situation where you feel like you're in control, you can handle a little bump in the road. You're never going to be able to predict everything, but what if we put some, ideas in place that help us get through, some of these tougher times, especially today where this I'm not, I've not talked to anyone that's really gotten a good handle on, what's going on with, right now we're dealing with the war in Iran. We've got the gasoline crisis that's resulting from that and all these other things that snowball, every day it seems like it's changing. And so that's where we talk about how do we be a little bit more proactive and a little bit less reactive.
Oh, I love that you say that. Such a good word, proactive. When we did community outreach, when we went into the communities when I was in the police department,
Hmm.
and I first started in there, we did a lot of community outreach, and it's like, the same thought is like, wait a second, I can't bear all this burden I'm one person. How do I help you? I can't really, fixing the problem isn't really like, pushing you out the door or arresting you or dropping you to the ground. That's not always the fix, right? It may be
Hmm.
fun, your energy is going high,
Yeah.
you're doing the thing, right? Because I worked, a lot of people hear this, my audience is familiar with it. I used to work in the casino. There's a lot of that dynamic going on, but that's not necessarily the solution. So now I have to look at it like, hey, we I was so reactive, and you had to be for safety. You got millions of people running around at 2 o'clock in the morning in Las Vegas. They're doing their thing, they're having a good time. So you want to kind of clean up, fix that chaos, and move forward. Doesn't really apply as an entrepreneur. You can't
Right.
fix it that way.
Right.
So it's those solutions, those simple solutions, I think, in life, that we're bringing out here, right?
Hmm.
And to be proactive, and it's not necessarily as an entrepreneur. Take the bureaucracy and all that extra crazy paperwork. And that's why people would talk to you, because you've got your plan, you've got your strategy, you know how to do that. And as an entrepreneur, you're the leader. You know what you're doing. You need to delegate to someone else, hire somebody that has that understanding and that training,
Hmm.
and let them do that. Because if we try to DIY it, we're in such a world of, doing it ourselves. You're not going to make any headway. You're not really moving the needle, and you want to have that success and then peace of mind that somebody's got your back.
Hmm.
It's really, that constant reaction, and that's what makes us stress too. With all the world's problems are on our shoulder, if we could fix this one thing and move on, I think that would really help. What do you see with people are the biggest their money leaks for business owners, and that they overlook a lot, that they could really would help them simplify, and especially getting on a conversation with you, because I'm going to share your information with everybody on YouTube, Rumble. We're also on LinkedIn.
Yeah. So I think one of the things that entrepreneurs tend to overlook, they you start off with an idea and then you build a business plan and you get some of this stuff in motion. You talk to an attorney, now you talk to a manufacturer, you're talking to, how do I expand my marketing? How do I get more sales? And next thing you know, you're in the day-to-day of just the absolute trenches of entrepreneurship, which is a wonderful and scary world all at the same time. And what gets left behind all of a sudden are ideas and plans in place to take care of some what ifs. And when I say what ifs, I mean, like legacy planning. If we don't know what your business continuity strategy is, are you trying to sell the business? Are you trying to pass it off to, one of your kids someday, hopefully? Do you want this to go to one of your employees? Right? Those kinds of things can inform some of these early stages in your business. Up into lawyers put a lot of things in contract language. Like if you have a partnership, they put, partnership agreements in place, but then those agreements aren't funded. And then we see, something unfortunately happens to one business owner in the partnership. And the next thing you know, you're unfortunately maybe in business with someone that you never intended to be in business with, a spouse or someone else part of that person's family that they just want to get their, paycheck and get out. And now that money has to come from somewhere. So those are a couple of things, I think most importantly on the business continuity side is, how do we plan to move forward when we, as the chief drivers of our business, aren't able to do the full scope of all of the responsibilities that fall on us all of a sudden?
Right, right. You're taking all the responsibility. It sounds like, oh, I accidentally got this person involved into
Mhm.
my business. Whoops. Now I got to take a certain amount of ownership, right? Because you did bring them in. And now how do you course correct, right? So how are you getting far in there? How are you moving forward with this? And what do you do at that point? But that really is, so when somebody's looking at their business, even just to reinvest in their business, they've got to look at, am I adding these employees? Am I keeping these employees? Do I need to have contracts? Are they
Yeah.
W-2? Are they working for themselves? Am I outsourcing this? There's that so much variable in that, and it can become such a financial chaos, right? You're
Yeah.
just like going around with this motivational quotes in your head. Everything's great. I want to motivate people. I'm going to do all this cool stuff, but we're not looking at what's going on behind the scenes, right? It's
Hmm.
like a summit or a workshop. What's going on behind the scenes? And if I do this and I'm running around, you can't see me, right? It's that John
Yeah.
Cena thing, right? You
Yeah.
can't see me like a little kid. I'm going to bury my head in the chair. But you really have to take some type of accountability. It sounds like a lot of adult conversation that people want to avoid. So when they come to you, how do they say, I got to be responsible? Now, I got to be the adult. I want my business to succeed. I want to reinvest into my business. And even, I was listening to Tony Robbins, like you should run your business like you're going to sell it, that it's
Hmm.
sellable, that it's worth something, that somebody can take over. But you want the right person to take over. You don't want a squatter in your house, right? Like you don't want a
Right.
squatter in your business that you're responsible for. What if they get hurt? You got to have insurance. Do you have to have medical? All this stuff is like, oh gosh, all this chaos. What happens when they have to look at reinvesting? Where does that money come from? And reinvesting into human. Do you take that into account to the humans that are there?
Yeah. I mean, that all has to come into play, right? And, you know, I hope for everyone that they make their $1 million or 2 million or whatever it is that your target is for revenue for your business, and if you're in the early stages of that and your business ends up being a 10x, 15x valuation on, whatever the revenue is, then that cash for the buyout or that cash to keep the business going has to come from somewhere. And there are ways to create that, at cost, that is more tenable and doesn't have to necessarily come out of cash within the business. And so those are kind of some of the strategies that come in that way. And then, of course, as you're going along, if you're maybe a little bit more mature in your business, you probably have two or three people that have become so important, so crucial to the success of your business, you wouldn't know what you'd do without them. Well, what happens if they all of a sudden aren't there, right? Or how do you keep them, and set up things that they want to continue to work because they still feel like you're valuing them all the way through the course of the year and the growth of, year over year. So, those are the things, I think from the business owner perspective, it's not what you necessarily signed up for. Right? You signed up to change the world, to impact your community, to fix something that you saw as, hey, I'll take ownership of this, I'll take responsibility, and I'll provide this to the world. All this other stuff, like, you'd mentioned before, Nicole, like delegate. This is where someone like myself, other professionals out there can help take some of this burden off your shoulders and give you that path to a little bit more, flexibility in your world.
Right. It's like you need somebody to kind of guide you and be there for you, right? You don't necessarily need somebody to hold your hand. It may kind of feel like that, oh my gosh, how far deep did I get into this? I need a hand up because you're so deep into the trenches, at least in your mind. For most entrepreneurs, I think that's the thing is where do I start? When do I come to you? What do I do? And I think it's just so important to kind of have that conversation to say, yeah, we need to do this together. I need to look at kind of that lifestyle has crept in. What do I want to do? I want to. You see a lot of influencers, and this is really what I'm talking about for authority code. How influencers lead their groups and their people is you want to take that responsibility. You want to be a leader. You want to delegate to others and you want to be good. You got to remember to be kind. You got to be soul led.
Mhm.
And that means that a leader is not a bad person. A leader is somebody that wants to support the team. A leader is somebody like, the captain in the team. That person wants you to do good because if the team does good, the leader can step up and shine and be like, yeah, I look good, right? Whether the leader's doing anything or not, you want to make that whole there. And that used to be the way corporate America worked. I remember Silicon Valley in the 80s when my mom worked at Hewlett Packard.
Mhm.
She got insurance from Kaiser Permanente. They got medication if they needed it. They got vacation. They got PTO time. They got family time. We had barbecues. We had carnivals, and they would pay her to go get training, stay at a cool hotel, and come back if she went to training or training within the facility, and
Mhm.
then promote her because they knew that they were looking at the community that they and the culture that they were building. And now
Yeah.
it's so cold. And that's why we have to remember as entrepreneurs, we're not doing it alone and we shouldn't do it all for ourselves because it's no longer successful. So there's a lot of clarity that needs to come in here and share that, right? How are we successful? And what point do we have the conversation? When people come to you and they talk to you, and maybe they're inconsistent in their income, maybe they're just building their business or looking at this, when should they have that conversation, or should they just get on the phone with you and say, hey, I need some help, I need some solutions, I don't really know what to do, I need somebody that has answers?
I think the latter answer is perfectly acceptable. I think, when you're just getting going, right? If you're a solopreneur and this is your first year, buckle up, hang on, and I definitely support you all the way. But in terms of having a conversation with someone like me, probably when you've got a couple of employees under the belt and now you've started to kind of get past that early stage where, you just are trying to talk to everyone about your amazing idea, and we've
Yeah.
got some revenue coming in, even
When
just a little bit. That's then I think the right time to talk to someone like me, because when we sit down and talk, it's not about how much money you make. And that is, I think, a general misnomer is that talking to a financial advisor of any kind, you have to have X amount of dollars, right? I have to have this much money in the bank, or I'm going to talk to a financial advisor when I get to this point. That point may or may not come. It probably will, and you'll probably blow right by it. So, if you're listening to this, this is your sign. I think, today is the day that you put that on your to-do list and have that conversation, because there is a lot that someone like myself can do for a business. And in order to figure out what that is and how to take those steps along the way, it may not be you need to take all these steps tomorrow, but we might chart out a, 2 or 3 year plan. So at least you've got something in place and you've got direction. So you have a roadmap on where you're going.
I love that. So you're not coming to people's houses like David Goggins and living there and start hollering at them at like 3 in the morning, let's go.
No,
Right?
I think there's that, and people get afraid that like I'm gonna all of a sudden tell them that they can or cannot spend money, right? That's not my job. My job is not to like, watch your bank account on a daily basis and then criticize you for a certain transaction here and there, right? There
Right.
has to be some trust there. What we're there to do is help set that foundation, right? Again, we go back to there's no shame in a dollar. You're doing what you do, because you want to build and grow your community. You just are not able to do that for free, unfortunately, in today's world. So
Yeah.
that's what we have to deal with. And there's nothing inherently wrong or bad about that. It's the way that we have to, just be a member of society.
Definitely. And you said something I think it's important to address. And I work with a lot of healers, a lot of tinfoil hat wearers. But I also know in my background too that and that's fun. I mean, I did say I grew up in California in Silicon Valley, so got the woo, that whole thing's going on without that fun governmental research and technology and all this, and it's all coming forward with quantum physics and all these neat things that they're doing, all these technologies that are coming at us, and we have to remember that there's a lot of shame around money, and it's a conversation to be had, is that it's a worthiness. We can't get past it. But if we flip that script and say, hey, that 1%, is the powerful all being, let's flip the script to the 99%. So we understand that. And I know for me, it's really that understanding in life that, hey, that paycheck isn't there. I've got to pay out myself. I've got to do this. I've got to cover that. What do I do? Let's have that conversation. What do you think is a mistake that you would like for people to know that they've done, maybe with even that shame around money, that you would talk to um,
Hmm.
with your people, with your team, with your business, to bring out in public, that you don't necessarily get to say in a networking event in 2 minutes?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in the Midwest, in a, Catholic household, and in that faith, right? They, put a collection basket out in the middle of mass, and it's kind of like to the point that you don't like, it's not right to look at, what your neighbor, donates to the church next to you. I mean, like it goes deep a lot of times for people where, you were raised in a certain way. And again, it's not a bad thing, it's just the way that it is. And I think you know, that's the part, I think we would want to acknowledge as a team, and how we show up and help people. And when you first have a conversation, where you are today is great. What you've done to this point has gotten you to wake up today. You're listening to this podcast, and it's another great day.
Yeah,
What
for
we're not
sure.
there to do is to add to your strife, to add to, like, you should have done this, you could have done that. That's not what we're there to do. It's not a situation where you've maybe done something wrong. It's, you may not have even known about what we're talking about in the first place, about the idea, the concept. And so that's, I think, I guess maybe harder to convey in a 2 minutes, is where you are today is okay, but where you want to go to tomorrow is really important. And that is, the focus of a first conversation, to see if we're a good fit, to see if there's anything even that we would help you with, is where do we want to go? And let's, no matter how big or silly the dream might be, it's okay. Let's talk about how to get there.
100%. And I think it's taking ownership of your own dreams, right? Are you saying, hey, I'm a millionaire, and you're you're putting enough on your mirror in the morning, and it's like, uh, I get the mindset, but what are you doing that's actually actionable, accountable, right? So
Hmm.
are you writing that down? What are you doing that are the little steps? And some of the things can be so simple. It's like, what action are you taking? Or you're just in the room telling people, and we've all heard it at the networking events. Oh, I'm a millionaires. You see what people are wearing, you see their actions, you see their tonality, the way
Hmm.
they stand, the way they look in the camera, the shame they have, right?
Yeah.
When they say that. And it's like there has to be that conversation more about money and where we're going with it and what we can do with it, because it gives you a freedom.
Hmm.
And you're never free unless you're financially free. And it gives such a freedom to people to be able to say, hey, I can make money anywhere. I can have that laptop lifestyle, or I can
Hmm.
just put my laptop and a phone to the side, make the money, go on a vacation, and
Hmm.
just, you know, go for a hike, go to the Caribbean, wherever you're going, you want to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, whatever you want to do, there's a goal. And I think that's so very important, is part of that money saving is, what are you saving for? Is there something someday that you want? And some of that, if you watch the a lot of old black and white movies, I do that, I'm working at 1 in the morning, I'll turn something on and it's like
Mhm.
there was a goal. Even if people were just retiring, they wanted to fix their car. They wanted to, bring that car back, buy a farmer. There was a thing, a goal, an accomplishment coming up. You can
Right.
have that now. It's easier to get. You can get it faster. But that also comes up is that, hey, with the fast pace of making money and the way that the digital currency is everywhere, whether it's crypto or cards or ATMs or just what like a wire transfer, there's so much going on. How do we clear that chaos to stay strategic in what we're doing and not buy that next shiny object, but stay with a main goal? So for people, do you help them build a strategy to what the someday that they want in the next week, the next 10 years? Is it kind of like a business plan?
Right. Yeah, no, it's a business plan, and again, I think for business owners, the big thing is the continuity plan, right? Because the continuity plan will inform a lot of where you want the business to go, and so will help, and that's a tool in our toolbox that will help people build because you know I think one of the questions or statements that I like to use in these situations is, and forgive me for being maybe a little bit morose here, but, people only think other people die.
Right. That's true.
So if you say it again in your head, people only think other people die, yes, you can expand that. People only think other people get sick. People only think other people get successful, right? It goes both sides. And so that's like the framework of the lens that we use to kind of backfill a lot of what we end up doing. And so, then it's the continuity plan. Then it's, are we keeping, our key employees, like, are they happy? Do they have enough salary? Are there other ways to pay them without cash, right? Are there other things that we can give them early on in the business where we don't maybe have a lot of revenue coming in and we need the revenue to put back in to buy more manufacturing space or whatever that happens to be. One of the people I think that influences me in our practice, Henry Ford, obviously the great business mogul and inventor of the assembly line. He thought his most important mission for his business, for Ford Motor Company, was to provide a working wage back to his employees so that then they could then go out into their world and support their community. So he took profits second. That always came after the employees. And um, I kind of doubt that Ford is run that way today. But that was the principles on which they were founded. And just to illustrate that, again, your business, your mission out there is to support the community and you want the best people to come work for you. Well, then maybe there are things that you can do to help keep them happy, keep them going without necessarily maybe revenue coming in the door. And so again, kind of comes back to some creative solutions that way.
That's great because when you're looking at the creativity and when you delegate as a leader to someone else, your creativity and what you do and what you share, if you delegate to the team's strengths, even your outsource. So if you have a virtual assistant, if you have somebody that's doing your CRM, if you have somebody that's running your stage, you can show up and shine. You
Hmm.
can be the better you, stronger right there. You have more time to launch your next product or service. So when you come on the stage or work on your talk or talk to people, you need to be on stage. You need to market yourself. It's so important to do that. And when you have somebody else that understands how all that stuff works, that's going to have that conversation, right? And who are you talking to? How is this working? So Colleen says that that's how her husband runs his business from the very beginning. The real flex is how many families your business can support. So that's so true in the community and learning that from other people, and learning that for me, not only in business but in life, is like it has to match. It has to be aligned and to help the community. How can you be in service, right?
Mhm.
What can you do? Yes, you can barter. Yes, you can give somebody something else. And there's those corporations out there that are bringing in that are undercutting other people. You know, we saw that a lot. I ran security for the county, and so there was a lot of city and county. We did it in the transit system for the buses, but you still have to go to meetings. You still have to talk to people. Still a lot of paperwork and a lot of bureaucracy. And I learned that with all that going on, it's so hard to get manageable solutions. It's
Mhm.
so hard to do quick things, quick thinking, offer quick solutions so they don't, so you're maintaining it at a small point before it festers into some larger beast and larger
Yeah.
pain point that nobody can manage. And I think that's definitely with the business and the solution that you can bring in here to say, hey, how do we do this? How do we flex this and give this? And so as an entrepreneur, I think we have to remember that when we're hiring out and we're delegating, hiring people that can either manage our money or help us manage our money or save or work or have this in our portfolio to move forward to say, hey, this is all included in here and this is where we're going, to have that safety net to make that change that everybody is looking at. You have to be the one that makes a small change. If everybody does it and you're constantly changing, it works for coaches, it works for manifestors, it works for leaders, it works for business to say, hey, if I make this small change, it's an accountability step, right?
Yeah.
You need to do that. And so you have to take that personal accountability. And if you don't want, if you're getting away from corporate America, don't bring those policies to your business. Now, everybody's a CEO and there's actual people that, are doing great things with their companies, but they want to bring that mindset to their business. And it's like, okay, what are we really doing? Keep it small, keep those people happy. What can you give them? Can you say hello? Mrs. Wynn in the casino, Elaine Wynn would come out. Of course, she wore these beautiful gowns all the time and she looked wonderful. She was like a Miss Florida or something, but she's super intelligent and she would come out on the floor. She would say hello. She was just reading our name badge, but
Mhm.
she would say hello. She would look at us. She would stand next to us. She would get out there, get in there. And that's part of what you can give to people that doesn't necessarily have a monetary exchange. You may not be able to pay them a larger wage or a larger income or whatever you're paying them to run your business or something in your business when you're outsourcing them, but there's something you give them where there's a customer service in there that you're making a change so they feel good when they're on the phone with you. So
Yeah.
you feel good talking to them, right? I think it's just really that customer service.
Yeah. And I'll maybe give another example. This is from my personal life of a situation where as a business owner, something that you might overlook. My wife is a tremendous, tremendous person. She's a scientist and she's running a lab here locally at a startup. It's about a 20-person company, so not huge, obviously still going through their own growing pains and everything. And uh, some things have been set up. The business has been in place for about, 8 or so years, so not fresh by any stretch. Um, but she came to me and she handed me her retirement account statement for her 401(k). And I took a look at it, and it was set up for someone that was in her early 60s, not her early 30s. And you could argue maybe like no harm, no foul. But, let's say, fast forward and she worked for the company for a long time, and now everything was set up in a way that she didn't realize. Now all of a sudden, you have a problem later on where you have a lot of missed opportunity. And, you know, the company still set up the 401(k). They were still following all the rules and everything was okay, but it wasn't optimized for her. And as a business owner, they don't have time to check that stuff. right? Like, and as like as an agenda item, right? It's so far, I'm sure, off the business owner's, mind as far as taking care of something like that, something really small, but it would have had a huge outsized impact on her and her retirement plan. And it would have definitely impacted how she felt about the company and kind of some of the work that she would have done had she figured that out, much later and put a lot more money into this 401(k). So that's the kind of thing, again, I think, when we work with, companies that are, that size, that's where we're your partner. We're there to also educate your employees and making sure that they're getting the most out of all the things that you have set up for them. And I think that's, kind of another one of those things where that's such a small detail, but it would have had such an outsized impact on her and her plans.
That's huge to say that, because I remember working in the casino, which really went corporate America. But when people would come and talk about financial planning or the 401(k), I- they were just reading off the brochure.
Yeah,
For me, it's, how do I do this? Why do I do this?
right.
What do I need to do? Where do I start? Oh, you just got to start. That's not a conversation to be had, and that's why I want to have the conversation with you, is because it's like, hey,
Yeah.
I can Google it. I can go to Chat GPT now and
Hmm.
get just the structure or the outline and make it look good and make myself feel good, because they're just programming the AI constantly to make it support you. Hey, you're doing a great job. You're wonderful. You're $50,000 in debt. Way to go. So is everybody else. Good job. Good job. And
Yeah.
that's what it does right now, is these things are or people in circles like, hey, that's okay. I'm living my van life right now, and at 53, that's not the best thing to do, right? It's
Hmm.
living off the land and all this other stuff. There's more to it if you're homesteading or whatever you're doing, but
Hmm.
is that really the way to go? But it was the conversation like, hey, can you tell me more? You're sitting here because you're getting paid hourly, or maybe you're an independent financial advisor, but make it make sense to me in my life. Make it
Right.
make sense to, why do I need to do this? What's coming up in a change? What do I need to look at? Why would I want to do this? Maybe I want to go on a vacation. Maybe I want to buy a house. But what are the three simple steps to even start that? And why would I want to get on a conversation with you? And now taking that sense to go, hey, when I'm in a conversation with people, and we connected on the phone, but when I'm in a conversation with people, I always want to know, like, tell me something that nobody else is telling me. You don't have to make it up, but make it make sense, or make it
Right.
funny, or make me understand it. And it's like, yeah, I've got to plan
Hmm.
my life. And yes, there's a time I'm going to expire. There's a time people around me are going to expire. I'm going to, some tragedy is going to happen. There's going to be medical issues. Let's
Hmm.
actually have that conversation. You
Hmm.
need to have that conversation at some point, because it's too late. If people want to tune out, maybe they need to look at, there's a different reason to save money. It makes sense for right now.
Right.
But really getting into that personable space, and I think that's what you do so well, is really having an actual conversation. And you did, you even gave, here's a pro tip, guys, if you're on a podcast. This is what Andrew did just so amazing, was he actually talked not just about his wife, his community, you know, but he gave an example of what she did, what happened, and why it was maybe going to go to failure, but how to stop and be proactive to fix that mistake. But she would have never known if she didn't look at it, never known if she didn't hand it over to you, never known if she didn't have that chance to trust you. And it's, you have to have that conversation where people make it make sense. Not just that it makes sense to a 5-year-old, but don't talk like you're talking to a 5-year-old, right? Don't put me in the corner if I don't get it, or
Right.
don't try to shut the door on me and take my lollipop away if I don't agree with you.
Yeah.
But help me understand, and I think that's so good. That's why we need to engage. You can do this online, and this is a solution that can be provided virtually. And that's what this podcast is really all about, is how do we really simplify solutions, clear up a lot of the chaos, and really come back to totally fixing our community, ourselves, our homes, being a true soul-led leader, and being in service. How can we be in service? Not just talking about the bad things, but the simple things we can do to make the community better, our lives better, and our home better. We are getting close to the end here, my friend. We had a great conversation. I did put your connection link from LinkedIn, but if you want to share any last takeaways or any caution maybe that you feel something that other people don't really talk about, or a nugget you want to share.
Well, I encourage, the conversation obviously to continue. We were general to an extent today on purpose because everyone's situation's a little bit different. But I will say, just as kind of like a final thought on like the workshops and how to impact, your employees and your community. When we go in to our business clients and we do, financial workshops for their employees, they're often very grateful and are not really fully understanding, even though, you've got HR sending out memos and you've got reminder emails going out about, do this or do that and to take care of, employee benefits. They still appreciate the personal touch and they still appreciate the opportunity to ask more questions about what you offer to them as members of their team because maybe they weren't ready to listen to it before, or they didn't read it because they had to get to something else on their docket. So they're often very appreciative of having that opportunity to ask someone specific questions about their specific situation. So again, just going back, we're all here to be members of the community, to serve others, and that's a really cool way as a business owner, where people leverage, myself and my team to provide even that much more value to their employees.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. And you guys connect with Andrew on LinkedIn. And this, as an event to scale visibility leader, really, this is a way to share with entrepreneurs like yourself how to leverage these events as a marketing machine. We had a great conversation. There's some solutions, there's some takeaways, but you couldn't have done it without the virtual event. So really, it's building an authority platform. Really, how do you influence and your audience and build that revenue? That's what we're doing on the authority code. That's what we're doing in the voice lab. You guys, all the links are in there. And that's what we did today. So it's giving a little bit of solutions, changing, moving the needle, and actually taking accountability. So thank you so much, Andrew, for your participation today. You guys, we're going to go out and I'll get back to that commercial there and play that in a second. And you guys, thank you so much for being here. And don't forget, I did put that link in the chat today, the workshop with Colleen Stubbs, and that is in Voice Lab as part of the Voice Lab, but we're going to share it to the outside people because it's so important. She talks about how to set it and serve them, how to build automations that feel personal and run without you. And that's what we want to do in the virtual space. We want it to be in your tone and voice, get all that creativity so you can set it. You can still serve people where you're in Cucamonga, wherever you're flying out. So that is today at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. All right, guys, thank you so much. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.